Hi everybody, I'm Adam, a wireless solutions architect with US Cellular out here in the Pacific Northwest. And today I'm going to share with you a video about how you can take an asset tracker, which is typically hardwired into a piece of heavy equipment, and attach it to a quick release adapter so you can easily move it around and take it where you need it to go. It's a kind of an odd application. A lot of folks have wondered, well, why would you want to take something that's typically fixed in something like a backhoe or an earth mover and make it movable and adaptable? And in this case, we're doing it to support a customer who is a logger in the area. As some folks may or may not know, a lot of logging operations out here in the Northwest are done in either state forests or national forests, and unfortunately, we're not allowed to put towers in a lot of those locations. So while it's easy to collect information on an asset tracker, like engine hours of runtime, engine diagnostics, even GPS coordinates and other performance metrics, without a cell phone signal, it's not really possible to get the information off the device and to the folks in the back office who need to make decisions about it. So what we've come up with is a solution where the supervisor can scoop up a handful of these units out of operating assets that are on a mountainside, staying there for months, and every couple of days grab them, throw them in the back of a rig on the way down the mountain, and all that data can then see a cell phone tower on its way down. These guys have a battery in them, so no problem there. And it will offload all of that data so the office can see what's happened over the past couple of days and make really important decisions about what next to do with the asset and how to build customers and exactly what their crews are doing out there. So I'm not a professional installer, so this is really just a best practice guide and an idea to support some customers, but we've got some other folks that we support who have heavy assets or heavy equipment that they store in locations or have to keep in locations that are outside of cell phone coverage. So we came up with this solution as a way to potentially offload data in situations where the environment isn't exactly perfect. So hopefully this is helpful, and from here we'll pivot over to some equipment and show you how it's done. Okay, so let's go over a little bit of what's on the table here and what we're going to be working with today. So up top here I've got some wires that we'll be using to simulate wires coming off of the vehicle in question. Below that we have a CalAmp 2800 series asset tracker. This is again a battery backed up asset tracker that would typically run off of a vehicle that does not have continuous power, like heavy equipment or a trailer. It's got a pre-attached wiring harness. It looks really scary. It's not really all that scary. We're really only going to be working with 3 wires today, so the white ignition wire, the black return wire, and the green power wire. But there are some additional wires included here for sensing applications, whether lights are on, other things like that. We're just not going to be getting into that at this point. We're looking for a very basic installation. I've also got some electrical tape to be able to seal up the connection. I've got some weatherproof connectors as well that we'll be using. And then I have 2 examples of the quick lock that I'll be installing today. So one is just a connected quick lock. You can see the 2 pieces together. And the other is that same quick lock separated into 2 pieces. But in this case, I've stripped some wire off the end so I can work with it. Looking over at the tools that I have available as well, I'm going to be using a heat gun to shrink the splices so that we can have them weatherproof. I've got some pliers to tighten down those splices and crimp them together. I do have a wire stripper. I've actually stripped everything in advance, but usually recommend using a good wire stripper so you don't mess up all of your interior wires. And then finally, a little wire cutter to be able to cut things to length. So those are all the tools that we're going to be using today. Okay, so we've got everything set up in front of us so we can do a little bit of splicing here. So on the left, we've got the wires simulating the ones coming out of the vehicle. So we've got green for a ground, we've got red for continuous power, and then we have a white for ignition sensing. And then this is the adapter that I'm going to be adding to those vehicle wires. And then on the side of the asset tracker, we have similar wiring. So again, I have white for ignition sensing, I have red here for continuous power, and then I have black for ground. You'll notice that the white and red wires both have fuses in line with them. They're right here at the edge of the frame, so they stand out. But the black wire is just a simple black wire. In this case, they choose black for ground. I'm weird. I do a lot of home electrical work too, and typically green is ground, so I chose a green wire there. But you'll also notice even in this little harness, it uses blue, black, and red. And frankly, these colors don't matter on their own. They're only important that you keep things consistent. So as long as you're wiring everything up so that the wires don't change or jump as you go from connector to connector, you should be fine. So in this case, I'm going to connect red to red, black to black, and white to blue on this side. And then for the other one, I'm going to do red to red again. I'm doing green to black here because, again, black is my ground, but I have a green ground coming out of the vehicle. And then finally, I have my white ignition wire, and I'll be using blue still for that on this side. So I've got these neat little splices here. They have a piece of metal in the middle and plastic on the ends. And typically you insert one of the wires into one side and insert the other wire into the other side, and then use your pliers to crimp down real tight on the middle so you can take that little itty bitty spacer in there and smash it onto the wires. So I'm going to do that real quick for you, and you'll get to see that in high speed. And once we're done, then I'll show you how you can actually seal these up using a heat gun and some electrical tape to finish off the job. Okay, so now we're going to try to splice our receiver into our vehicle wiring. So again, we've got the white ignition, the red continuous power, and green for ground. Now, I kind of intentionally made a little mistake here. So you'll see that these wires have all had their insulation stripped back. And if I grab one of these splices and I insert the wire into the splice, you will see that it actually has a little stopper, so it stops about halfway through, but you'll notice there I've actually pulled off a little bit too much insulation. So I'm going to cut some of that wire so the insulation sits nicely up against the splice. I just like a really clean install. That's probably enough to be okay, but I'm going to go ahead and clip that off and we'll get it seated in really nicely. All right, so my access is off. I'm going to twist it up just to get a nice tight turn on there so I don't have any frayed bits of wire hanging out. Then I'm going to slide that blue wire back in, and that's a much better fit. Much happier with that. So I've got that guy sitting in place. I'm going to turn this around just because I'm a righty and grab my pliers here. And again, I'm just going to squeeze on this left half so I can pinch this wire into its side of the splice. You got to pinch really hard. This is serious stuff here. I never managed to get it right on the first try, but I'm going to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. And there we go. That's in there pretty good now. Pretty happy with that. Okay, so I've got that one splice on. I'm going to go ahead and do that for the other two. I'm going to have to trim their wires back just a little bit, so we'll do that. And then we'll get their splices added too. There we go. Okay, so we've got 3 splices on. Looks like the receiver is pretty well spliced. So now it's time to get this receiver connected to the vehicle. So we'll go ahead and again, match up our colors at least as best we can here. So we've got our red continuous power. I'm going to slide that into the splice for the red. And once again, there you go. I've gone too long. Let's cut that back just a bit. All right, so with our harness ready to go, let's go ahead and we'll start with red. Why not? So we'll slide red into red. In we go. Okay. And let's pinch down on that real tight again. Make sure it's all the way in. I get it. Yeah, it's in there real good. Okay. Let's go ahead and take our white wire next. Now remember, we did not have white wire on this harness, so we're going white to blue. That's what we decided in advance. So we're going to go ahead and slip white in there. So that matches up with blue. Give it a tug. That's in there real good. And then finally, again, I used green for the vehicle wire just to show that the green, or green for the vehicle ground wire, but it could ultimately be any color. In this case, we're going to go green to black, so we stay consistent there. Just again to show that the color coming off the vehicle could, or the cable coming off the vehicle could be any color. In this case, we're just using a standard green for ground, but the harness only has a black, so that doesn't matter. Okay, we're good. All right, so now we have a receiver wired nicely and crimped relatively nicely into the wires coming out of the vehicle. So again, we've done red to red because green is our ground. We did green to black. And because white is our ignition, we did white to blue because we don't have a blue wire on there. So we're not done yet. I'm going to hit this with a heat gun in a little bit, and we're going to shrink those down. But before I do, I'm going to run through and actually crimp together the other side of the receiver to the asset. Okay. So now we got three good connections. So on one side, we have our asset tracker connected to one half of the click lock. And on the other side, we have our vehicle connected to the other half of the click lock. Now, normally you just plug these two together and call it a day, but I'm not done yet. These are weatherproof splices. So I'm going to be hitting those with a heat gun real quick. I'll put that on video so you can see them shrink down. And then I'm going to wrap them with electrical tape as a final measure. So let's go ahead and get those shrunk. Okay, now it's time for the big bad heat gun. I've got a Steinel in this case that has an LCD screen that gives you the temperature at the top. There's actually no temperature guidance on the adapters. It just says heat them till they shrink. So we're going to try this out. Let's go ahead and fire this guy up. And it's set to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. It's warming up right now. You can see 110, 120, 130. I have no idea if this is hot enough, but we're going to give it a shot. So let's go ahead and blow that heat onto one of those adapters. Nope, doesn't seem hot enough. We're not shrinking yet. So we're going to go ahead and turn that heat up. We're cranked up to, ooh, that might be a bit much. Let's try 200. So we got 200 degrees on the gun, coming along. Go ahead and hit that shrink. Is it shrinking yet? Oh, let's see if maybe we need more air. Nope. Nope, when in doubt, more heat. Okay, up we go. We're going to try out 320 now. So there we go. We're at 320. There we go. Now we're starting to get some shrink at 300. I don't know if you can see that, but the quick lock adapter is starting to shrink. Let me turn the heat up just a little bit more. Don't want to burn myself, but there we go. See that guy crimp up on there? It's getting nice and tight, creating a seal for us around that wire. I'll go up just a little bit more. It is possible to do this with a blowtorch too. I'm not sure how you would without melting the plastic, so I tend not to. I like using a heat gun. As you can see here, I'm liberally spraying my hands with this heat gun. It's basically just a blow dryer on steroids, but it's a lot safer, directs the heat much more directly. There's no melting, and Like you can see, I have some pretty precise temperature control here. So there we go. We're getting a pretty good shrink. I'm at 440. I'm going to go ahead and turn that up just a little more. Let's go straight to 500. So we'll call it 500. We're learning together, folks. That's looking a lot better. Okay. Oh yeah, and you want to rotate your splice as well to make sure that you're heating all the elements. It does shrink on its own, so it'll attach in there pretty well. But you do need to rotate it and get all the different sides. You can actually see it's got some bubbles in there as well that work their way out as you heat. Pretty cool. There we go. Okay, so as you can see here, there's one that, let me get it in focus for you. There's one that's been shrunk, and here's what they look like unshrunk. So definitely not quite as nice unshrunk. And now I get a little bit of water coverage here because we have a nice tight connection, and it helps to reinforce the splice as well. So I'm going to knock out the other ones real quick, and then we'll wrap it up with some electrical tape. Oh, that's nice. So you can see actually all the bubbles come out, and the plastic actually connects directly up against, once you've got it appropriately heated, it'll actually connect right up against the plastic there, creates a really nice seal, weather-tight seal. But again, I'm not thrilled with that. I never am happy enough with just one thing. So in this case, I'm actually going to be pulling off a length of electrical cord as well, or electrical tape as well. I will clip this little bit of electrical tape. Oh, actually, here, let's just use it as is. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to double up, and we're going to wrap electrical tape around this wire as well. There we go. So that's backed up with some electrical tape as well. So I've got that shrink wrap inside and electrical tape on the outside. I'm going to do that to all the rest, and then we'll take a look at how everything looks once it's all wrapped up. Okay, so we're all done here. We've got our wiring receiver hooked up to the vehicle. It's been spliced. It has extra electrical tape on there to seal it in. And we've got a similar setup here from the asset tracker as well. So now we have these two click lock pieces, and all you have to do now to connect the asset tracker to the vehicle is click these two things together. You've created a waterproof connection now that can stay under the dash or there on the floorboards. And of course, now your asset tracker can track that asset out in the woods where you have no cell coverage, log data points, and then when you're done with your day and you need to drive back down off the mountain, all you have to do is reach under the dash, pull this little click lock, and it hooks in good. There we go. It's separate, and now the asset tracker is free to go. You can toss this in your supervisor's vehicle, and they can drive down the mountain to their hotel or to the office. And on the way, it'll grab a cellular connection. It will upload all of its data, and you'll know what happened with that vehicle for the day or the couple of days that it's been in. Okay, folks, we're all done. We've got our asset tracker connected to one side of the click lock adapter, and our vehicle connected to the other, so we can easily connect and remove our asset tracker and head into and out of the woods as necessary. The parts that I used in this case were pretty easy to come by. So the splices I got at a local auto parts store, I just got ones with the right gauge that match the wiring that I'm using. The spare wiring I also got at an auto parts store right next to the splices on the shelf. And then these click lock adapters I managed to find on Amazon. This is a kit of 5. I think it was about 11 bucks. There's a bunch of these out there. 3-wire, 2-wire, 4-wire, so you can use them for other automotive applications. But I got just these for demonstration purposes. The company seemed reputable enough, and the reviews are pretit good. But pretty inexpensive for supplies. I think it was at $12 for these guys. A pack of wires about $3, and a pack of splices again is maybe $2-3. So it's not a very expensive set of equipment that you need. Of course, you need some tools in place. But usually an installer will have access to those, or your mechanic will have access to those. And the process should be pretty simple. So I'll put some links in for you guys to be able to see the hardware that I got and where I got it from. And absolutely, if you need anything from an IoT perspective from US Cellular, reach out and let us know. We'll be happy to take care of you. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, folks.